The very interesting thing about this race is you don't see, other than maybe Chris Christie, the candidates criticizing Trump because they understand that the base, his base, is still in love, for a better word, with this candidate. And therefore, it's probably not in their best interest to talk against him.
Donald Trump's campaign has raised more than $7 million since his mugshot was taken in Georgia last Thursday. Merchandise like mugs and T-shirts and drink coolers have been made with the former president's face on them. Trump is currently on bail, of course, having been charged with plotting to overturn Georgia's 2020 election result. Well, Kadia Goba is the US political reporter for Semafor. I spoke to her earlier and asked if the news was surprising to her.
It's been consistent and in line what we've been seeing in the past. Every time there is an indictment handed down on former President Trump, there seems to be a spike in his polling as well as his fundraising. This time, I guess because of the nature of the booking and all of the mugshots that came with it, it was even more dramatic, as you mentioned, with a $7.1 million haul just from Thursday.
Incredible, isn't it, really? Just really incredible. It's hard to wrap your head around some of those numbers. Kadia, I saw the other day both a pro-Trump and an anti-Trump Twitter account, both using this mugshot as their profile picture. And I thought that really kind of sums this up, doesn't it? If you like him, this is a symbol of martyrdom. If you don't like him, it's a symbol of how unfit for office he is.
I think that is also a contribution to what we see with this $7.1 million because clearly this is an unprecedented event, right? A former president is being booked and a mugshot is taken. His supporters, we understand that they're going to support former President Trump. But then we see a class of, as you can say, haters or people, anti-Trump people that just want the nostalgia or just are very interested in this unusual dynamic with a former president going to jail, or I should say, being booked. It is unprecedented, and I think we're seeing that. It's very interesting to see reporters cover this because, again, like there's something that we haven't experienced before in the past.
Yeah, it is. It's new territory for everybody, isn't it? What does this Kadia tell us about the way that Donald Trump is financing his campaign? Because we're not talking here about massive conglomerates, huge donations from billionaires. We're talking about about sort of dollar donations, aren't we? Relatively small scale individuals paying into his campaign.
Yeah, again, consistent with what we've seen in the past, these are individual donors, which means that Trump has a very strong following, and the following is even stronger. When you talk to people or some of his supporters, they say that they just feel like the government is being weaponized or against him, and for that reason they're supporting him. I've even heard situations where people were on the cusp and we're kind of tired of Trump's it being in prison, or I'm sorry, being a part of all these scandals, but this specific indictment, they felt like it was unfair and this was their time to come out. So I think we're seeing a new dynamic where his polling is increasing because of people who specifically feel like enough is enough. There's weaponization involved here, and they want to support the former president.
Yeah, it's certainly been his best asset so far, hasn't it? What is currently happening to those within the GOP? And there is at least one of them within the field of candidates standing to be the Republican nominee against him, Chris Christie, who are pushing back against him.
Yeah, but that's a rare feat. You don't see many of the candidates in the primary pushing back, as evidenced by this past Wednesday's debate, where we saw Vivek Ramaswamy essentially take on this personality of Trump, where he, sort of praised him and like kind of repeated some of the rhetoric that you would hear Trump. The very interesting thing about this race is you don't see, other than maybe Chris Christie, the candidates criticizing Trump because they understand that the base, his base, is still in love, for a better word, with this candidate. And therefore, it's probably not in their best interest to talk against him.
Right. So it still remains political suicide, at least within the GOP, to be critical of Donald Trump. There is no, and what I'm getting at here, I suppose, Kadia, is there an anti-Trump energy within the Republican Party that can sort of coalesce around one candidate and start to do him damage, or is that just not happening?
No, it is actually not happening. We saw a little glimpse of that a few months ago, and now it is not happening.
Okay.
There is some talk about donors wanting to, pivot to another candidate. That's not even in the race.
Kadia Goba from Semafor in the US, speaking to me earlier.